Now, let's talk about some of the different functions that mass media serves. Mass media serves a number of different functions, and we're going to talk about 6 of them on this slide. The first of these functions is the information function. We have a need for information in order to satisfy our curiosities, to reduce uncertainty, and to better understand just how we fit into the world. Now, the mass media, it could be argued, serves this function all too well, because the amount of information that we receive on a daily basis can be overwhelming. And this media saturation has led to an increase in competition to get information out there, which provides for the potential for news media outlets to report information prematurely, inaccurately, or even partially. So the information function is one that needs to be taken with great caution. Next, we have the interpretation function. Media outlets interpret messages in more or less ethical ways. For example, when the mass media has to present information to the audience, they are often presenting their interpretation of that information. But they need to be careful about making sure that it's known that this is an interpretation rather than straight information. It's kind of like the difference between fact and opinion. Next, mass media serves an instructive function. Some media outlets exist to cultivate knowledge by teaching instead of simply relaying information like news media outlets might. An example of this would be kids' television shows. A lot of television shows that are aimed at children have the purpose of teaching them a new language or teaching them important life skills and cultivating that knowledge for the children. Mass media can also serve a bonding function, which helps bring people closer together. An example of this would be if an outlet published a story about someone's personal life experience that was rather unique, and your personal experience was very similar to the one that you are reading about. Reading about another's personal experience that is very similar to your own can make you feel like you are less alone in the world and perhaps bring you closer together. In addition, mass media serves a diversionary function. We all use mass media to escape from our day-to-day or distract us from whatever is happening in our lives, whether it's an upcoming exam or a mass pandemic. Mass media serves a diversion function. I know that I have been reading a lot lately to escape the day-to-day because that's just what my brain needs to do. And finally, mass media serves a really important gatekeeping function. And this function is multi-tiered. So media outlets serve this gatekeeping function, which means that they affect or control the information that is transmitted to their audiences. And mass media ultimately serves 4 different gatekeeping functions. Those functions are relaying, limiting, expanding, and reinterpreting. When a media outlet is relaying information, they are simply passing the information from them to the audience. And this information has to go through several human gates, quote unquote, including a writer, an editor, a publisher, a photographer, a webmaster, and the internet as well provides a gate. And so usually we are the primary receivers of this information when it comes to mass communication, and we depend on the gatekeepers to relay messages to us. But it has to go through all of those different steps, so there's so much information out there that just might not get through those different gates. In addition, mass media serves a limiting function. So as I was saying, media outlets decide whether or not to pass something along to the media channel so that it can be relayed. Almost every single message that we receive is edited, which is inherently limiting. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the message is bad or manipulated. It simply means that it was thought about how they were going to relay that information to the audience and whether they were going to relay that information. There's some information that just shouldn't be relayed to a mass audience. For example, state secrets or the movements of different spies in different countries and things like that probably shouldn't be broadcast to the mass media because that could put those people in danger. And so if a media outlet becomes privy to something like that, they have to check with the government to make sure that they can publish that information. So this doesn't mean that because of this limiting function that this is a bad thing necessarily. It's just a fact of life. It's just that, we have to make sure that the information that is put out there is accurate and that it makes sense and that it's not going to be doing more harm than good. Now, in addition, mass media can serve an expanding function. For example, a blogger may take a story from a more traditional news source and fact check it or do additional research or interview additional sources and then post it on his or her blog. And there's a lot of this that goes on these days, actually. A lot of political talk is constantly fact checked by people online. And there's lots of different meters online that expand on the information that our politicians are giving to us. And so expanding can help us to get more information when otherwise it would have been limited, and so that we can be better informed about different aspects of our lives. And then finally, mass media can serve a reinterpreting gatekeeping function. This is really useful when gatekeepers translate a message from something that is too complex or foreign to us into something that we can understand and that is meaningful to us. A really good example of this was when the Affordable Care Act was going through Congress and the courts, and this was a really intense bill. It was hundreds and hundreds of pages long. You might know it better as Obamacare. And this bill was just so complex that even the Congress people didn't really understand what was in it. And so media outlets reinterpreted the bill as it became a law and translated the legal jargon so that it was comprehensible to the mass populace. Because if any one of us was to read that bill, I guarantee that we wouldn't understand half of it. And so part of the media's job is to take that really complex information and break it down for the layperson so that when we read it, we can understand it and know the facts and be able to formulate our own opinions on it based on the information that the media is giving us. So as you can see, the mass media serves a number of really important functions in our lives. And so it's important that we understand how it works and how it functions in our everyday lives.